We're based in Colorado Springs, and we're just so excited to have you on for this live stream. And we really want to draw your attention to just an amazing issue in America right now that's being discussed, the Equality Act, the so-called Equality Act. And this came up in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing this past week, and a question was asked and answered by Senator Thom Tillis out of North Carolina. If the Equality Act is passed, if it is passed, would it allow a man, born a man, who has been convicted of harming women sexually, rapes, other things, to request and have federal protection requiring he be transferred to a women's prison and be put in a cell with the woman? And the answer from the bill sponsors and the Democrats was yes, it does that. Folks, this is stunning. It's something that we pointed out, Family Policy Alliance is in the public policy that is really being baked up by social media, not the public policy experts of old that used to dwell in our Congress and in our state legislatures. Folks, there's a lot of work to do. This is a big issue. It's about a population we don't talk about that often. It's about maybe one of our most vulnerable populations, women, while they're incarcerated. Why do we care about that as Christians? It's really simple. Jesus Christ said to us, visit the prisoner as though we were visiting him. And he takes this very seriously. If we want to know Jesus, we have to know what's going on in our prisons. There's been a lot of talk about criminal justice reform in America. I think this is a stunning backtrack in women's rights, and it literally is going to do a lot more harm than good with women in our prisons. I have Autumn Leva, our Vice President of Strategy. Hello, Autumn. She's going to be joining us here live in the studio. And we also have the wonderful guest, Amie Ichikawa, who has her own experience. Amie, thank you for being with us, of being incarcerated and founding a nonprofit to stick up for the women's rights, the voice of the voiceless, literally by definition, voiceless, can't talk, can't write letters, can't organize, can't advocate while you're in prison. You have men that may not have been cured at any level of their affliction, which is harming women, getting a federal right. But this isn't new to you, Amie. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, and then I'll ask you questions about your nonprofit and what you're doing right now. But introduce yourself to us, Amie, right now.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Amie Ichikawa, and I am the founder and president of Woman to Woman, which is a group some of us formerly incarcerated ladies created to advocate for our friends that are still on the other side as a result of this exact situation.
And so you started Women to Women. You're using your experience to benefit other people. That just I had the privilege of working for 10 years or 9 years at Prison Fellowship. Charles Colson, Chuck Colson founded that organization. I went through the system twice myself. My thing was addiction to drugs and alcohol. And he said he thought I could use my experience to help other people. That's what he did at Prison Fellowship. And you're walking in that pathway too. So God bless you. That's what Women to Women are doing. But you're based in California, and we're talking about a federal law today. But is it true that maybe you've already seen some of this in California with a bill called Senate Bill 132?
Yes, Senate Bill 132 was recently signed off by Governor Newsom. And I think it might have had good intentions in the beginning, but there were some oversights. Women's safety wasn't taken into consideration during the creation of the bill. And there were there's a lot of deceptive language that's used peppered in throughout the entire bill. It leaves giant gaps for people with bad intentions to manipulate it. There's literally no reason why anybody can be denied a request, including physical anatomy or criminal history. No women were asked any questions. The senator who created the bill, along with the former secretary of CDCR, said that they surveyed everyone who are a group of people who would be affected directly by this bill, but they failed to include the women. So the girls weren't given any opportunity to provide input or share how this was going to affect them directly on a daily basis.
Well, Amie, it sounds like they would be the ones who would be most affected by SB 132, which to me sounds like it is already doing in California what the Federal Equality Act would do across the country, basically allowing a man who identifies as a woman at any time for any reason to be allowed to request to transfer to a woman's facility. And I'm wondering, Amie, if you could share with us from your experience, how would that play out practically? I mean, would they at least be housed in a single cell, or how would that work in the woman's facility?
Well, the bill was created to be inclusive, to not single out transgender or non-gender conforming people to have to be in any isolation. What's going on in women's prisons, the layout is much different. It's not like men's prison at all. In Central California women's facility, there's 8 inmates, 8 incarcerated people to a cell. Within that 4-bunk, 8-person cell, there's a toilet, a shower, and 2 sinks. And everything is in a very tight space. The showers have kind of like a cowboy door. There's no privacy. You have 6 feet to have your entire life for however long you've been sentenced. The lack of privacy is hard enough to deal with just being with people that are anatomically the same as you. So imagine being in a space with somebody who still physically has a male body. You already don't have a lot of self-worth as it is when you're in there. But to think that you're put in a position where you're just, you have absolutely no privacy. It's very violating.
So it sounds like there's really no way for men to avoid seeing women's body parts in these facilities, making it very, very awkward for female inmates.
And vice versa. It's not a really comfortable situation for anyone, I don't think. I can't imagine that the staff are comfortable. And then, if you take into consideration that most female incarcerated people are trying to rehabilitate from things like PTSD, years of sexual abuse, really toxic relationships, this kind of puts a hindrance on their ability to do that. It's already a very stressful environment. So to think that this is now another hurdle is somewhat unbearable. The messages we're getting are extremely scared, full of anxiety. It's not healthy. It's not necessary to give someone additional punishment once they've been sentenced.
I hate to ask this because it's a terrible question. It's a terrible thing to talk about, but I do think it's something that people really do need to understand. And so, Amie, I'm going to ask, what is the likelihood that someone, a woman serving time in a prison, could be assaulted in an environment like this?
Well, from another peer, it's indefinite. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, we can barely keep staff from harming us. So to think that there's the opportunity for someone whose intention is to actually hurt women to slide in, it's so scary. It's a whole lot to deal with. And when you're locked in a box for 24 hours a day and that's all you can think about, it really takes the light out of the little amount of light that you do have out of a very, very dark situation.
It's really stunning to me. And I know doing a lot of work in the prisons and the criminal justice system, what you're talking about, that sexual violence against women in prison is already unacceptably high in America. I think people don't realize that. It's way beyond any societal norm. And it is perpetuated on women by staff and vendors and other concerns where we're having, from a public policy standpoint, just the idea of men working in different positions that are trained, that go to sometimes years of training, to hold positions in women's facilities because of the negative outcomes that it has on women. And now we're talking about allowing the people serving time in prison. Sometimes we could have a life sentence for violence against women and have no intention of actually having any dispute about what your gender is, but you could game this law and you can say you're a woman, you can be transferred in. It's horrible. And have you ever heard of an incident that's already taken place with this, Amie? I mean, and I'm talking about the people that aren't necessarily the person that's transgender, just somebody who's gaming the system. But is there, with the people that actually are trying to pursue this because they perceive themselves to be of a different gender, have you heard of incidents with those folks yet?
Absolutely. Before this law was even passed, when I was still incarcerated, there was a transfer who came in from Texas to serve his sentence for serial rape. At the time, he was identifying as a woman, but since then has completely stopped taking hormones, is still incarcerated and living his life as a man on the yard in the women's prison. It was bad. The yard he landed on, I wasn't on that yard. I was 2 yards over, but word travels fast. He was, well, at the time she was given a private cell, private room, which is, for a single person, it's pretty nice because then you have a private restroom, a private bathroom, a private shower. But at that point, this person was very standoffish, had a big chip on their shoulder, wasn't understanding that there's a huge cultural difference between men's and women's facilities. They're very different. There aren't the same politics in women's prison as there are in men's prison. And he was trying to implement those politics on the ladies' yard. And it wasn't vibing, it wasn't jiving. And he ended up getting assaulted and sent to CIW down south, down here, which is where he completely stopped taking any transitional therapy or hormones.
It's hard to hear this, Autumn. I don't know where you are with it, but it's, I don't know to call it misplaced compassion or I just disregard for the women that are incarcerated in America that we have a lot of hopes for. We hope that people are correcting their life. We're hoping they're paying back their dues. And the women are a different group of people than men. We know that science bears it out, but here we are after all this talk of Me Too, after all this talk about advancing. I have 3 daughters. I'm just shocked if one of them made a poor choice and had to pay a debt back to the community while being incarcerated, Autumn. They might be exposed to sexual violence at a clip much higher and than they would be exposed to in the general public. And that's stunning to me.
Very concerning. I know that we've seen statistics as high as 80% or more of women who are incarcerated have already been victims of sexual assault and abuse. And so for that to be just proliferated in this way and to place women in this vulnerable situation when, as Craig said, and as Amie, as you shared, women who are serving their time often are just trying to get back to their families and to make their life right. And to force this upon them, it is wrong at every possible level. And I'm just so thankful, Amie, that you were willing to speak out about this and to share your story, to share what it's really like for women who are serving time, because their voices do need to be brought to the forefront.
So, yeah, and just to unpack that a little bit for us, Amie, tell us about what you're doing, what you're hearing from the women. I think you said you were organizing some letters were being sent in and out of there. Tell us about the progress. And again, with Amie Ichikawa, did I get that right?
Sure
and she is the founder of an exciting new nonprofit, Women to Women. based in California. We will be able to share her information with you as it develops. She's formerly incarcerated. She's got a great story of redemption. She's been out for several years, and she's trying to give back to the women that are incarcerated today, and their very lives and their privacy is being threatened by the Equality Act. And she's here to speak out, not just for herself, but on behalf of them. So tell us again, tell our audience what you're doing, what the ladies are doing with you, and how you're able to help them today.
Well, you know, I owe my life to the women that are inside, that took the time out to help me understand self-worth and made me value myself. They were the only people in my life that took the time to really ingrain some important things into my head that I just missed growing up. So I owe it to them. This is the least I can do to advocate on the highest level I can. Over the last few weeks, several weeks, we've gotten all kinds of reports of, staff intimidating them, telling them, oh, you better act right or do what I say, or else I'm going to put a man in your room to rape you. There's situations where people have transferred in with huge, attitudes. You girls better put all your clothes on or else I'm going to be triggered. It's not a healthy environment. So what we've encouraged the women to do is write letters and let us know how Senate Bill 132 is affecting you and how this is directly related to the Equality Act. It's just a mini version, because what's happening inside is what's soon to happen to everybody, not just incarcerated people. This is what the entire nation is going to look like, for little kids all the way to very, very old people. This is going to be insanely impactful on the daily processes of everyone's life.
Amie, I'm wondering, for the senators who are considering the Equality Act at the national level right now, the Judiciary Committee heard the bill this past week, and now we've got the full Senate set to consider the bill. For those senators who may not ever get the opportunity to read the letters that one of these women is writing, if you had the chance to speak to them, what would you tell them about the Equality Act?
I would say I'm definitely in hopes that everyone in the nation can have equal rights, but they can't come at the cost of one of the most vulnerable communities in our country. Women's rights need to be protected. It's just very hurtful to think that women are being completely overlooked and forgotten. And we've come so far in the women's rights movement. It's very saddening to think that this is the biggest step backwards in women's rights that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's the beginning of the erasure of women's rights, and I don't see any equality in that at all.
I hope that Senator Schumer and the others considering it will watch your video, Amie.
Me too.
God bless you, Amie. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, sharing about your new nonprofit, Women to Women. We wish you all the success in the world, and we're going to share with others how to help and get involved. And for our our listeners, know, again, we're the Family Policy Alliance. We work in alliances with independent organizations in the states, and we've got a wonderful organization out there in California that we hope that you'll get involved with. You guys can help lift each other up, and but also you for lending your voice here to the national audience, because we have some work to do federally on this policy. But folks, this is a big deal. The Equality Act is before our nation right now. It has been misnamed. It is not adding equality or civil rights to everybody on an equal basis. It is really probably the first time that our nation's history that we've said we're going to subtract rights from a population, in this case women, and reassign them, reapportion them, because women have gotten too many rights, apparently, too much success over the last couple hundred years. And we're going to apportion those rights, including their safety, going to the bathroom, their privacy, and we're going to appropriate those to other folks. And so it's worth us speaking up for. It's worth us getting involved. It's worth us paying attention to these brave voices like Amie Ichikawa, who joins us and has been sharing her story about her work at Women to Women as a formerly incarcerated woman, the harm that this is going to cause in the cells to women in real time in California. I just want to verify a couple of things, Amie, and if you can stay with us for a couple more minutes. My understanding is that there's already 300 men in California that are up for a transfer, but as many as 1,200 that have applied for this. Are my numbers about right?
I do know that there are 300 transfers or requests that have been granted and are in limbo, waiting to be transferred to an already very overcrowded prison. The 1,200, I can't verify that, but I really wouldn't be surprised because it's
well,
gonna
that's
happen.
it. No, that's all right. But 300, again, to put it in perspective for people, you and I both know prisons and jails and the rest of it, but to the folks at home watching this, the prison population is 4,000 about roughly, right? It changes every day, but for that facility. So
Yes.
300, I'm just trying to put it in perspective for the people listening here. 300 is already, you're getting toward 10% of the, and this is not a small thing. And again, the problem with this legislation is it is not written to protect the rights of we don't want people that are experiencing gender dysphoria, that believe that they're of a different sex than they were born, to be bullied. We don't want them to be hurt. We don't want that to contribute to a negative culture for them in prison either. Right? Just as we don't for a lot of protected classes of people, former law enforcement, informants, all sorts of reasons why we protect people in prison. Mm-hmm. That's not the dispute here.
No.
Our concern is that this is saying that anybody, so you don't even have to really desire to change your sex. You can just be a man that's saying, I would rather be around women and I can order it up because the law says I can. And that's what we're looking at here. And it's already happening in California. And that's what we'd be looking at in the country too, right?
Right. Anybody who can read can see the gap in the logic here. The fact that there is pretty much no reason that you can be denied this transfer request, because even if you are denied on the first level, you're given an opportunity to see another board, which we've asked to be maybe consultants on a case-by-case situation, but there's no adequate reason, there's no safety net, there's no precautionary measures taken to prevent manipulators from taking advantage of this law at all. And it's been taken advantage of already. And it's not about, this isn't a transphobic movement at all. This is a pro-woman, not anti-anybody. We just want to be remembered and taken into consideration when legislation creates bills like this. That's all.
Well, that is a great place for us to leave the conversation today, but also while you're here to have the charge for our listeners, please join us in getting involved. We can absolutely stop the Equality Act in the United States Senate. That is possible. We know we can get there, but we need your help because it's on the razor's edge right now. Please help us, and then help us help Amie in California. Maybe we can bring some common sense there. Maybe we can make a policy change in California there too, Amie, to think that women have to endure just as you said, 24/7. There's nothing else to do but to live in fear of when the shoe is going to drop. I pray that we can help you in California change the law there too.
It's going to happen. I feel it. We've been praying about it. We wanted to attack it on a federal level first because we know if the Equality Act passes that it doesn't matter what we do here in California. So we just started at the top and we'll whittle our way down until we've exhausted every possible thing we can. But we need stamps, we need stationery, we need prayers. And we need to spread the word. Most importantly is that people have a full understanding of what this Equality Act means. It's deceptive language. It's hiding behind a very happy, seemingly happy productive bill, and it's not. Read into it, read in depth, explain it, talk to a neighbor about it, but shed light on it. Making sure that this is a well-known deal and well-known issue is going to help on so many levels. Just educating each other is going to be extremely impactful.
Well, thank you so much, Amie, for being with us. And we hope again to talk to you soon. And to our audience, thank you for joining us. And to Autumn, we really appreciated you tuning into the show, and we look forward to having you catch up with all of us on this soon. But in the meantime, please get involved. Talk to your legislators, federal legislators, about the Equality Act. Take action. Share this with your friends and family on social media. And thank you for sharing with us today. God bless you.